Okay, thanks everyone for joining us here today on our webinar here for unlocking the power of OCR and image match analyses with HeadSpin. My name is Peter Muller-Earl. I am a senior solutions engineer at HeadSpin. I've been in the testing space here, testing cloud and cloud automation here now for about 5 years. I've worked with all kinds of customers, from small mom and pops to large blue chip companies. The topics here today will start with a platform demo, and then that'll give us a basic understanding of what we're talking about here. And then we'll go into the OCR and image match capabilities that HeadSpin has. HeadSpin is a platform where you're able to test devices remotely. We support iOS and Android devices of all kinds, from phones and tablets to TVs and pretty much anything that might run Android. What we're currently looking at here is the main page of HeadSpin. This is our remote control, where you could see all of the potential devices that you could run tests on. There are other areas of the platform here. You can see the navigation panel here on the left-hand side. But again, we're in kind of the main area here with all the devices. We can search this list here for specific models or certain locations here. HeadSpin, again, supports all kinds of devices and has locations all around the world. I believe we have over 180 potential locations where devices could be. And if I wanted to start a manual test here, I could go ahead and hit that blue start button here. That's going to, again, launch me into a manual session where I'd have the device screen in front of me. I'd be able to use my keyboard or trackpad and mouse to control the device here. Just as you'd expect, we could load into a browser, we could download applications from the App Store, or we can sideload them through our various APIs. We do also have the Appium inspector here built into the platform, which is incredibly useful for writing automated tests because it exposes the document object model of the application here. Let me get that started. Now, this kind of branches into part of the topic here that we'll get into a little later and more specific. Let's get this loading here. Try another device. Always fun when we have the demo effect on the webinar. Well, I have an example of that screen here. So essentially what we get is going to be the Appium inspector here in line with the HeadSpin device here. And we can use the Appium inspector to find elements and use in our automation tests. There's even a record and play tool here. Now, the challenge of where our topic comes into play is sometimes we do encounter interfaces like the one we're on here, where the Appium inspector is unable to actually query what it sees on the screen. The document object model is either purposely obscured by the application, or maybe we're watching a video and we're looking to extract information from a video source. You can see here, these are the elements highlighted in red that Appium is able to detect. And these would be the only elements that I could traditionally search for or query for using Appium. We'll look into a little bit about how HeadSpin solves that in just a moment here. Now, we do also have performance reports when you're running these tests. So we get a complete video of the test. We have a breakdown of how the network performed. We can download any of the test assets as well, including the video or the HAR file. And then what I'll do is I usually pop this out here. And then we have a number of performance KPIs that I believe there's about 141 plus that could potentially show up here that give us, in the end, a composite score for our test. And this score is used by many people in our customer profile to basically decide whether or not to do releases here. Generally, you want to have the score trending up. Anything above an 80 is typically a good score, and anything below an 80 is sort of a bad score. It needs room for improvement. You may end up seeing customers complain. And we have an analysis engine. We have many different ways that we could analyze the sessions that are taken here. We have image match capabilities, as we'll get into a little later. We have OCR. We have many extra other than what you just see here. But the base KPIs that you'll get on every report are going to range from a MOS, a video MOS, mean opinion score, blurriness, blockiness, etc. of the screen, network connections and how things, how the bandwidth has generally performed, CPU, memory, if that's relevant here. And then we can also even take a look down at the thread level details of what's going on in the application here. Now, again, if I didn't mention it here, this is representing the test here from the left being the beginning. And as I scroll along here, we can see all those KPIs are going to match in line with what's occurring in the test here. Same goes for down here at the thread level here. So we can see all the individual threads that are happening as we go along the application here. I'm even able to go down into the lower level Java code that's going on here. Our AI ML engine is able to profile all of that. And on the left-hand side, you'll get what we call issue cards, which is our AI ML engine explicitly telling you what areas there are to improve. We'll talk about that in a little bit more. As we scroll down here, you can see there's many different threads being called. We even get down to the TCP information here. So we can see all of the API calls that occurred by domain, and then all of these are going to be inspectable. So if I go and click any of these connections, you can see on the left-hand side, we can go ahead and understand the details of what was sent, what we retrieved, what we got back, etc. Now, coming back here. So coming back to the topic, the challenge that OCR and image matching tries to solve here is that, again, that some applications, some tests that we're going to be writing in our day-to-day lives here, they don't have traditional ways for us to query, to write the test, to navigate, to validate, to run assertions, all of those things. Some examples are just production applications that explicitly hide that, so that you can't use Appium on their application, period. Gaming applications where there's no traditional UI on there, but however there may be text or logos. Media applications and media platforms here as well. We already kind of looked at this, but again, this is an example of that where, again, Appium is just unable to detect anything. So the OCR technologies on HeadSpin, they are going to manifest in two forms. Mainly, the difference there is going to be during runtime, and that's useful for real-time navigation. However, there could be a test performance hit. The OCR, the computer analysis there takes a little bit of processing time there, so it could lengthen the time of your test. So that's where the second one comes in here. It's mostly going to be the same overall capabilities, but in this case, we're running an API request after the session has completed, and we're going to save on that performance hit. So the runtime analysis does use a plugin from one of our contributors here, Jonathan Lips. He's actually employed by HeadSpin, one of the main contributors to the Appium project here. What this does is it will expose a command that when you run it, you'll see everything that was human readable. So it'll break things down and try to detect words on the screen. And then it will expose an XY coordinate that you can use to navigate based on that. So in my example here, we were looking to hit this ABC live news stream. But as you can see here, Appium doesn't detect any of those elements here for me to hit anything on. And so here's an example of that command running in VS Code. The command is OCR command. Then we can set it to using a different context that exposes a different context here. When we set to the OCR context, we can then use an XPath identifier to look for any text here. And in my case, I'm looking for the ABC News live stream. And that will, as you can see here, when I expanded the objects, ultimately in that text that gets detected, there's XY coordinates here, and we can actually just go ahead and use those coordinates to select it. You can actually go directly to that element. So it's pretty cool. And one use case where I've seen this, maybe on a more practical scale, is in media tests where they're where applications are exposing like what codecs or what frame rates are being exposed, and so we can use these OCR technologies to actually find that information for validation tests. So the second method here is going to be post-run analysis. This does use our API, so you'd run a curl request with some information. Again, this is going to be, from a performance perspective, this will be the fastest way to do this type of analysis. And in this method, we can provide a time reference and an XY coordinates for the request. Right? So we don't want to search the entire video. There's a certain portion of the test that we want to start the search for, and then an end for. Once we set that, we also can set an XY coordinate area, or you can check the whole screen if you want to do that. But this will return back text of what was found in that reference. This is going to manifest itself in the HeadSpin dashboard here. So this is one of those extra analyses that will show up here. And we can see down here in the session area, these are the references that we were looking for. We were trying to identify application icons here. So we give the XY coordinates of those, and we were able to get the expected values back. So that's going to be the introduction to the optical character recognition of HeadSpin here. Now, if there are any questions on this, we'll have some questions here towards the end of the webinar. So intro to image matching. Image matching does use our API as well. So this would be a post-session analysis that you're running. There's going to be three ways that we could be looking for image matching, three methods we could use on the image match. One is going to be template, which is going to look for exactly that template, exactly that image. And if it doesn't find it in that size or orientation here, it is going to fail. Multiscale will look at different size references for the same image. However, at different orientations, it will fail. Key point analysis will look for the referenced image in really any orientation or scale. Just if that image manifests itself in that time period, you will get a return back. Now, for all of these methods, HeadSpin provides an interface for you to upload a reference image, and that reference image is then used as part of the API request here to of course, be the reference image for what we are looking for here. So you see some examples of this. Again, template matching, looking for the exact image. The reference here that we're looking for is going to be that smaller headspin that's going through. And this is how headspin, the computer vision, tries to match that, right? If we don't see the exact match, then we're not going to match it back. Multiscale will, this is configurable. You can set a limit to the scaling. However, multiscale will automatically scale up or scale down the image and then search the screen for that image and either return a pass or a fail. Key point matching here, as you can see here from the reference, at different orientations or even different sizes, we'll go ahead and return a match. Here's an example of the type of information that you would send in that request to the API here, and we'll make this deck public here for people's references. I do have links to all of the required documentation here in this deck, but you'll see basically an image request come up, and then in the results, you'll be able to basically understand if a match was found or a match was not. Based on the images being found or not, you can decide to pass or fail the tests. These are going to be used a lot of times in validation tests to make sure that logos are obviously showing up correctly as expected or haven't moved, or just that page layouts remain the same even. We can set a reference of an old way that the expected, I should say, the expected version of the page is going to be, and then we can run an image match, and if there's any delta there, HeadSpin will let you know. So that is going to kind of wrap up the OCR and image match there. We'll leave it up for some Q&As here. If anyone has any questions about HeadSpin or the topic that we have covered here today. So we do have one question here. How does Appium OCR plugin differentiate text for navigation versus interface text? I think so. The OCR plugin helps us to navigate live in an application when we could not do so traditionally. In the traditional Appium methodology here, we might have interfaces that we can't see that we would like to click on, but we're just unable to, and that's where the Appium OCR comes in. There's another question here. Is this only for mobile or browser? This is for cross-platform. This capability should work on browsers, mobile browsers, as well as TVs. This is available on cross-platforms. Another question here about start and end times. How does start and end time specifying and XY coordinates improve text detection accuracy? Well, because these tests can be pretty long, right? And so usually the things that we're trying to validate only show up in certain time periods and in certain XY coordinates. And so rather than running analyses unnecessarily here, or running an analysis on like a 1 minute long test where the image or the expected text only shows up for a couple seconds here, that could actually give you a false result. For desktop browser, the Appium OCR plugin may not work. The live navigation may not work, Aravind. However, the post-session analyses that I showed you, using the APIs, those will work on desktop browsers. So we have another question about, does HeadSpin work for native mobile application testing? Yes, it's one of our most common use cases here. And if you'd like to get in touch and get maybe a more personalized demo for that, we'd be happy to do that. So there's a question about what kind of use cases we've used the OCR for. Our media use cases and gaming use cases are going to be frequently using the OCR. I think I mentioned it, but like one very common example is to make sure that the streamed video is either being sent using the right codec or at the right frame rate. A lot of times streaming companies can expose a developer debug interface that shows up while the video is also playing. And so we can use the OCR to extract data from that, validate that the right codecs or right things were playing at the right time. So that's a very common use case. We also see this being done in validation testing and like last minute checking before releases, just making sure that the expected content is showing up. Any other questions? Leave it open for a couple more minutes just in case. But again, if there's any questions, even about the platform, I'd be happy to discuss that. Any additional setup we need? There is only additional setup to do the runtime Appium OCR navigation example. This does require you to install the Appium OCR plugin. And again, this is the one that I don't think will work on desktop browsers. I will double check that one, but I don't believe this will work on desktop browsers. But everything else that I went over here today does use just an API request. So there's no additional setup or anything that you need. You just need to make sure that you have the right parameters for the for the request. I will also mention that there are ways in HeadSpin to checkmark time periods and things and reference later on. So that may be a subject for another webinar, but essentially you could automate the extraction of the start times and end times by basically inserting checkpoints as part of your automation. And you'd say checkpoint here, this is where we are from maybe period A to period B. And then those checkpoints can be used in these API requests later on. So that way you're not hard coding the values here. So hopefully that answered your question. In terms of reference docs, I did put all of the links here in this doc area here. So we'll either make this public somewhere or we can follow up in some way with these links. Thank you for the questions. So wait a couple more minutes in case there are any other questions, and then we'll be ending the webinar here. I see people dropping off. So before anyone else drops off, thank you for joining here. We really appreciate your attendance. Again, I will stick around for any
Peter,
other...
we have 2 more questions.
Okay, great. Okay, since we're giving XY coordinates, how will it work with multi-brand device or different size? That's a good question here, Arvind. There is some requirements to understand how the video boxes work on different devices. And I'll be honest, it takes a little bit of trial and error to get the XY coordinates right. Maybe we can, if you are curious about implementing this, maybe we can talk one-on-one. There's another question here. So the question is, are there any plans to implement the possibility of live verification for images? I don't think so. That does require some good processing power in real time. So I don't think we have any plans to implement that in any real time aspect today. Possibly a couple years down the road. There's another question here. Sometimes OCR can't identify handwritten text. Can you please let me know how HeadSpin is compatible for that? That may be a good use case for the image detection if those are going to be static. Maybe you could use that somehow. Handwritten text is going to be really subjective. I mean, on the quality of the text, etc. There are going to be different what am I going to say? There's going to be different confidence levels and methodologies that you can provide for that in the documentation. They do go over some of that. So you can tweak some of the parameters of the OCR, and that could yield a better result depending on which methodology you use. And for that, I would recommend that you check out the documentation. All right, so we are going to be concluding the webinar here. Again, we really appreciate everybody for the attendance here and the questions. If there are any additional questions, or if you'd like to get a personalized demo one-on-one with someone like myself, then please reach out. You will get something from us for attendance. And thank you again.